Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Polina here, chatting to you a little bit about this particular full moon that is happening here on the cusp between Capricorn and Aquarius, as the sun is going to be just about in Gemini on the last degree of Cancer. So this is another cusp moon. Does this make things complicated? No, it is not. This event is happening on the 21st, 22nd of July. It is already the 17th, so I hope it's not too late for you. But yeah, let's have a look as to what is happening. So firstly, let's close the books. Let's make sure that we don't take things any further than they have to go. I've received several clients during this time that could potentially be very noisy people later on for many years to come if they don't stop the train. There is a feeling of a freight train of thought and action that may not necessarily be the best strategy or lead you to the best reality. So we have to be okay that things have happened the way that they have happened. We have to be all right that people have done what they've done and if they've said what they've said. And for sure, Cancer, especially the last part of Cancer, was leading people on to believe certain things and suddenly associate or feel, hey, I've got rights, or hey, that's not fair anymore. So we've got to basically believe in ourselves so much that we don't make a mess of the next events. And we do definitely have Pluto next to the moon there, as he is in the first degree of Aquarius and he is retrograde and he's not going to stand for it if you mess this up. So the thing is not to get too excited, but some people have uncomfortable results, but also beneath those results is a hidden treasure. So there is a next step, there is a new level of yourself, there is a new identity or personality evolving as we speak. There is a next level. Maybe there's a next level crash or crisis for certain people in the world. Maybe there's a beginning of the end. Now we have to tighten this up. I'm not sure if you're a fan of my Patreon channel. I've been coaching my Patreon folks for about a week and a half. I repeat myself a lot on Patreon sometimes just to make sure that I really help people strategize and emphasize there's need to be trustful, caring, helpful, giving, and loyal and simple in your steps, as they're going to help you go forward and not muck it up. It's very easy to fire away. It's very easy to fly away. Sometimes your words may slip up during this time, or your intention is good, but what you are trying to achieve may be wrong. So basically, I also feel there's a lot of the hidden that is coming out to the surface, which is also what Pluto brings, and a lot of safety that we are now seeking or finding in completely different places, different root systems, different homes, different commitments than we are used to imagining. So maybe now you've got a completely different identity, or you by now have decided things in such a way that it's very rude, strong, and maybe sometimes even heartless. So we have to rein it in. We have to put things into perspective and make sure that we don't go wrong. Yes, there is still Jupiter with Mars in the same sign and Gemini. There is Uranus right next to Mars, very close. We have VX next to Lilith. We've got South Node close to Lilith, so things can get resolved and you can really pull a rabbit out of a hat and recognize where you are and where you are not, but you've got to be so super kind and clean and mature and make sure that you don't hurt anybody in the process. Because it is easy to hurt people for no reason. It is easy to speak up about things that don't need to be spoken about right now. It's easy to start a court process and not have anything back you up. It's also easy to be decadent and overspent or overthink, and also release that which you need and run after something that you haven't got anymore or never will. So the main thing, the main opportunity here is to sleep on it. And while we're in Cancer, it's good to do affirmations, to pray things off, to say Ho'oponopono, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. Make sure that you keep a very tight grip on what you do have, and maybe through some ancestral knowledge or data bank, and through some kind of ancient or previously kept idea, you will go forward. And maybe if there is a certain type of thing surfacing, it is for real. So for example, you could have previous achievements surfacing, which actually have a lot of light and a lot of goodness within them. Maybe your elders have prepared for you the next step. Maybe you have a certain type of inheritance coming, or there is a very big help that is coming in from underneath. So it's really good here to be employed by a family business or a company. It's nice to be offered a place next to a family tree or close to a community that does actually have some substance and some results. It's very nice to feed from a feeding tray, if you would imagine. That is happening for many people. It's good to benefit through a certain type of venture that seems to be feeding many people, many lives. It's nice to be in a group that is safe and is whole, and it has a certainty to it. So it's really nice also to be educated. It's nice to be part of an education system or program that actually helps you now. It's really, really good to see where your commitments have been coming to and also where they won't. The more and more I talk about it, the more angry I get. The more and more I get myself certain results in life, the more I want, the more hungry I am. Sometimes the less I eat, the better I feel, or the less I think, the better I feel. And some of the time it's not either one of those. It's not about less is more or more is more. It's not actually necessarily about hunger and sustaining last chance ideas or sort of last life or past life chances or changes. And it's not necessarily about giving in. It's just about real sincerity, real trust, and having no real issue with anybody. And after a while, seeing how things may also proportionally change or catch up or act out to point you in a new direction. At the moment, what you have is real. But the thing is, some of the time, it may not necessarily be that for real for an eternity. We have to make sure that, yeah, there is some kind of karma that is neutralized and maybe silenced. We don't want to maybe speak about certain really scary life results and really angry feelings, because we will not be able to wash these off. They're not going to come out in the wash. We will not be able to have a second look at some things, because if we leave now, if we change things now, this may make a habit of changes or quick chance takings. And also people that, well, this is optional, not very well in their family tree. They don't have any security given to them since they were a child, so they don't have any kind of parent archetype in their life, and never could have had, or a person that doesn't have anybody speaking well to them. They may not necessarily watch out for themselves. So maybe they're talking, not thinking about what they're saying. And also, if you have a part of you that believes that you are somehow by default betrayed or laughed at or spoken about, if you have by some innocence as well, and also by some part of your nature that criticizes yourself or other people, and that wants a certain edge to come up now, like, look at me, you might not necessarily suffer, but it can also give you an unconscious, ungrateful, or repetitive and ill result. So for example, if you're right now feeling like it is your strategy to get out there, to just tear those layers away and show yourself and be very brutal, or being perhaps very arrogant or angry or forced with your perspective, if you're really looking for attention, and if there are parts of you that are just boiling underneath and they want to come out, and they like expect criticism, or they expect somebody to be standing there with some kind of like a shady paperwork or anything like that, you may not necessarily be wrong. And I understand why for some people their senses are tingling and they're like, look, I don't know what it is, but I'm like really paranoid about what's going to happen like in the next couple of days. I really don't know where I stand. That's also not necessarily just your nervous system firing. There could be something in the pact, there could be something in a system that is not to your advantage, or you might be kind of slied, or maybe somebody's slying around you, and that is also very real and correct. If we do have a certain type of repetitive behavior in our family trees or community that makes us feel sparky and angry and no longer wishing to be polite. But then there's this other aspect. We have to not necessarily hide, but just take down those feelings. We have to take down that angry post. We have to take down that angry statement. We have to no longer be part of this mixed bag of people that are all yelling, screaming, projecting, and protruding, and make sure that we've got something that we really need to have today. So this is very important. If you have now inherited a piece of land, it is probably yours forever. If you are now maybe looking at signing for a very big project, it is probably very, very polite to look over all the details and see, yeah, life is giving me something true or real. And there are bloodlines, there are people, and there are universal strategies where they are in the know of something that is probably going to raise their value, raise their finances, raise their perspective, raise their reputation, and give them that next shiny new adventure or level of life that Cancer has been preparing all along. So through Cancer, there was this pivoting. There was like this slight kind of hidden part of Cancer that wanted to shovel things around and see what's right and wrong. And maybe you didn't see it, but maybe people underneath or world events or different currents of energy were kind of playing with the layers as if you're playing with layers in Photoshop, that kind of thing. And it was trying to mix and match and see how they could seamlessly fit. So sometimes even a life that is made of little pieces, a life that is made of shambles, that is in shambles, can be very clearly and even culturally maneuvered or very classically lined up by Cancer. So even if you didn't know for a long time who you were and who you'd become, even if your life seemed to be a mystery or you didn't really understand how it was all going to sit eventually in the end, this is the reason why I've really said a lot about learning and studying and taking every option, taking every opportunity to help things settle better. Understand that Cancer is not a deterministic period where you just cry your eyes out or where you try to reach into your soul. It is also about learning and giving yourself a reason of a doubt and trying to make sure that you also don't miss this amazing multi-vision, multitasking energy of Cancer, which basically tries to kind of unconsciously, secretly line things up so they all match. It's like trying to make an emulsion, or trying to make a batter out of all of that which has happened in your life, understanding your character traits, your personality, your given status, your financial freedom or lack of that freedom, understanding where you do and do not want to voice yourself, understanding your limits and your excels, and then wanting to somehow put it all into a nice, private, simple worldview. Or sometimes Cancer will, in a way, dominate you with some reasons or some events or some really needed, paperwork or some really needed ideas just to make it whole. Cancer doesn't want to absorb you. Cancer wants to help. And also the next feminine sign is Virgo, and Virgo also wants to help. So while we are in this lukewarm side of the sky between Cancer, Leo, and Virgo, it is still possible to maneuver things, and they're not yet set in stone enough to be malleable for the rest of your life. And I'm sorry to put a little bit of a very, very kind of sad or scary, edge to this, but yeah, dragon likes to set things up, and sometimes they are forever. And there's no innocence anymore. So it's a sign of extreme maturity, dragon, and extreme outcomes. It doesn't want us to forget the small details and everything, but it wants us to be fine with the logical, simple events and clarity that it takes to live a nice, wholesome adult life. So it's not about disjointing. It's not about suddenly flying away. It's not about suddenly poking fun at anything or anybody. It's not about a sudden debt or like a sudden change, although that can also happen. It's very, very important and appropriate to be clean and simple with your conduct. If you like, take care of the legal paperwork. Look over it again. What are your rights? And also sometimes it's nice to sit down and think, what is your vision, or what is your territory, and what are your skills? What are you presenting to the other people around you? And potentially also, to a degree, what have you been presented with by those around you? And it's important to somehow take time, measure, to have some silence. It is better to have silence than to have aggression during this time, and to really maybe talk about it if it is real for you. And for certain people, it is nice to open your eyes and open your senses as to who is here, who's listening, who's watching, who's on your side, and what can happen to make things better. What can happen to put oil in the engine? What can happen to smooth this out just a little bit, so it is more palatable, so it is more edible, so it is more unquestionable? Because we want a nice, smooth, whole, hearty result. As this part of Capricorn, and also the beginning of Aquarius, though there is Pluto there as well, is not necessarily about talking, or doing. It is about eloquence, eloquent, healing, nice, whole sums. Like, for example, a nice sum of money for what you are owed, or for example, a nice, healing, simple business, a nice, all over, well-rounded opportunity or option, a nice, well-made and well-presented website, for example, or a very exquisitely put together coffee shop. It's a very, very nice, simple idea that usually stands the test of time, and though it could be potentially mediocre, or it could be not as planned, we need to have a certain amount of safety, trust, protection, and respect in order to hold it together, even if I or you or anybody in the story might not be feeling fully connected. Because if you have been somehow established in a connection during this time, if you have got anything at all, if you have an online presence that is working for you, that is functioning, if you have a phone, if you have a home, if you have a partner, if you have anything, to have lasted to this point, to have stood at the test of time, to have made it this far, it has something very simple, very holy, and very appropriate, and very respectable about itself. So we can't just, screw this and screw that. We can't just pull and push energy to the point where we don't know who we are. It's very easy for us to drive it to the point of it no longer being recognized. Like, to talk so much to somebody, there is no holy space between people. To give so much that there is not enough consciousness. To eat so much, there's not enough time to digest or taste. To give also so much to you or to them till it means nothing. So we just have to, in a way, keep a certain celibacy sometimes during this time, which is really important with Pluto amping people up without need. It's really nice to have a neat, simple zone. It's nice to have clarity. It's nice to have divine timing really considered during a time like this. It's really good to have safety. It's good to remember who you are and what you've got. If you were to be now, completely presented to God, if you had to meet your maker, what would you say? This is not about talking jazz, this is about making a say, like you're meeting your maker. Okay, this is how it feels during this time. And you'll have to stand before him, if you can imagine, in a religious or metaphorical sense, however you like. Or you meeting that part of you and your soul. And now you have to basically not necessarily explain, but listen, like, what do you got? What have you got? Or what have you got left? As time washed things away, as things got reconsidered, as everything went up or down, as things became or not became, as things glued or dislodged, as things went this way or that way, as there was some definite turbulence and some slip and slide, there would have been a certain type of, at least maybe, comment somebody made about you that has really crystallized you finally. Maybe you don't see yourself, which is fine. Also, it happens to the best of us. Sometimes you don't really get it, but someone else will just like say it to you, like, look, like this is on offer, you're welcome, it's okay. Maybe you've had no real truth or idea, but sometimes there are penetrating words or actions or life events that will help you to feel good about yourself and how far you've come. And if you had to sum it up really, like if you had to sum up the last 40 years of your life, or if you, like it's seriously that big, or if you had to really like listen to yourself and understand who you are. It's hard to bastardize this time with words. You'll probably get it in the end. You look at yourself, you get it, you understand. You look at who you are, okay. You get what your limits are, and potentially also what your amazing gifts are, or your amazing communities are. Even if you're Einstein, it might be very humbling in the end as to what you have had in mind all this time. It might be very humbling for other people to see you here at this point. And it may not be necessarily shabby or badly made or just badly said. Look at how you are and at what point of your timeline you are. This is very, very simple symmetry that the sky is presenting. It's just hard to be so simple or simplified in yourself, because people, we don't want to know it yet. We don't want to know you. We don't want to know me. We don't want to know anything. We just want to get it done. As that is what Capricorn has always been. And that's what he's brought in the last couple of days before the moon. But it is really nice to see that those simple commitments, those simple jobs, those simple faces, those simple things can, once they are ready, bring about a sky-high result. And I'm not telling you this is about the high result or being great necessarily, without necessity. It's just more about keeping still and waiting for all the facts to sink in, waiting for all the parts of your personality to build into a nice, simple conclusion, and then maybe to have a rest or to have a certain state of simplicity to replace the states of dissonance, and then understand that you will not go any further unless you have a simple, caring, conscious, and easy wave spell after. You do not need to bring this bag of karma with you. You don't need to bring that bag of tools with you. You don't need to bring that bag of sorrow, or even a bag of forgiveness, or a bag of enlightenment, whatever bag it might be. If you don't need to, don't. That's the best advice I got. I think this whole thing is just about that. If you don't need to get real, don't get real. If you don't have to set the ultimatum, don't set it. If you don't have to argue, don't. If you don't have to question, don't. If you don't need to all of a sudden make something, don't. Don't make nothing. The smartest people have already launched their projects. Or they have not yet done it, but they're waiting for a few final ingredients. There are people that have already got it going on. There are certain people that have already worked it out, and they didn't get involved without need. They stood apart from that which is happening with them or to them or around them. And they have needed to have some sacred, selfish, alone time, or they needed to have some personality to be able to remove their magic, to remove their obsession, to remove their active mind from that which is going on. So they can stay honest and just safe on that level. Maybe sometimes it is a voiceless person that is the smartest. Some of the time it is the kindest person that is the voiceless. It's not necessary sometimes to go in all guns are blazing, so don't disrespect a person that has not been available or has not been surfaced, as they are maybe not within reason, or they are not within time. But those of us that have been somehow put into a situation or put into their place and have now become an active figure in somebody's life or in their own way, they have been chosen for this, or they've chosen it themselves. Not every choice is artificial. Sometimes these are organic, simple symmetries that nature will provide just for us to follow them. But if you do not know how you're going to live, if you don't understand how you're going to survive, if you are still angry or repetitive in terms of work, money, trouble, health, anything, you'll need to just wait and consider every single vision, every single voice, every single part of your trauma, everybody in your life, so you basically don't pull or plunge without a real reason. So you don't say anything that you don't need to say, that you don't make anybody anything that they don't have to be made into, that you don't make other people notice you for no reason. If you know that you are restless and you are helpless, or if you have a personality trait that will just bulldoze through all of these energies, even all this work and all this energy, and you got all those guns a-blazing thinking you're gonna do it now. So this feeling of aggression and excitement for the reason that you can now make it work, or you can now go in, and you can now become hysterical. A hysterical part of a story will inevitably lead to a certain type of hysteria in the end. So the thing is to become more subdued, more innocent, more timed, and definitely in certain cases more tribed, as there's nobody else but a several people tribe, maybe taking care of you, thinking of you at least, or just remembering about you. And the whole idea is not to wake up too fast, too soon in Leo and suddenly make a sudden change or seek sudden worth and decide that you have a completely different vision of who you are, unless that was being given to you all along. So it's not about competitiveness. It's not about, oh my gosh, we are in August, dragon year, I'm going to have to get grand. In some cases, there is a huge number, there's a huge price, there's a huge personal responsibility, or there's a giant wake-up call for some people. But that was made from simple little steps, tiny pieces, and everything came in as that which it had to be. And in some earth logic, that person is now with a very, very big idea or a huge presence in their lifetime. They are definitely big people, big winners, or soon to be made big people, or investors or presences. There is something underneath still. There is still under the guise. So not everybody is going to take care of this. Not every single person is able to really understand how to work with that amount of money or that amount of time, or with this amount of power. But in some cases, we will definitely take a peek and will be able to see as to what was that thing and what was it for. And if you can imagine, there are some people that are no longer traumatized, that have taken that trauma with them for thousands of years through their family tree. And then there's also a very big natural native upcoming. And in some realities, there's going to be just a natural leader or host that is given. So for example, now this person gets to be seen for the king or the queen that they are. And in some situations, there's going to be no outcome that you can see in the physical world, but there is definitely paperwork that is being taken from one place to another. There is an unseen motion, and there is a feeling of even overbearing stress or pressure as something is yet to be. And that birthing, or that feeling of like being born into a new dimension or a new philosophy or a new association with yourself or another person, that is going to be a gorgeous sight. It is, some people have it delayed. So in some ways, maybe there is something really big coming, but it is just kind of like, it's like a pressure. It's like baby, going through the birth canal, but the baby is not yet out in the open, so there is some of that. And for some people, there's been almost a silent, quiet, intermittent, internal birth. And then there's going to be a whirlwind of events that is going to be taking place in their life as a kind of like counteracting energy. And in certain people's cases, no matter what they want, no matter what they need, no matter how they plan it out, no matter how much they try, their nervous system and their inner systems in the body, or their endocrine system even, their whole soul is not capable of taking on the dream, or they are not forward enough with themselves to face simple guidelines and results, and they still have an inner argument, or they still have a certain immaturity that is going to, at this point, maybe take years to fix. So I'm going to try and help you through. If you have a certain part of your system that is lacking in innocence, and you're like scheming crazy, doing crazy things, and you are still trying to be underneath something or somebody, or you believe or you pretend that somebody else has the keys to your world, or you're trying very hard and you're getting knocked back and you're going back where you're not needed, and you keep on trying to help people with that which is not necessary, that's going to eventually turn into a cry. So like that whole thing of like, why me? The gentle lion crying. So let that be known if you want. Now, this is an interesting part of this. Gently tell only the better person and the closer person, the family person, or the person that knows you the best. Maybe if you're going through something really bad, for example, you have lost, you have repeated a pattern that was not going to get you anywhere. You have made a friend that was troubling you and made a fool out of yourself. And if you've made nothing of that which life has given you credits, life has given you talents, life has given you money, life has given you fun, life has given you people, but you never actually knew maybe how well you were hooked up or how beautiful things were, and now you are sitting there with a very big sense of damage. Like, I honestly don't know what I can do today. If you are now here, you will sometimes potentially get a friend or a host or a long lost loved one that will come in naturally through and simply share something with you. Sometimes it's a medicine, sometimes it's a caring embrace, sometimes it's a possibility, opportunity, or just once in a million chance to advance. And now we have to be very, very loyal and hardcore kind and better than we've ever been to be able not to blow it all to smithereens as we are now going into the next part of Dragon Year, the second third, if you're counting it from Aries, counting it from March. And we are going to be not in a good place, okay, if we just blow it all away and suddenly there's all guns are blazing. And there's a lot of healing that some people may also receive from violence, from unachievement, from dreams that didn't come true, and sometimes from a healing that they have to have as a part of some kind of emotional vendetta that couldn't have in their mind been healed through anything else. So sit it out, think it through. Also with the governments, anything that's happening in your neighborhood, be very, very calm and make sure that you are safe and you know who it is that has been there for you, who they are and where they belong, what they've had in mind, how they are, who they are. Get to know each other and make it very real that you're not going to put this backwards, So we have to sometimes have time and be calm. And sometimes it's really hard for people to admit once they've got something in their life. And sometimes people are chasing things they've already had sitting there for sometimes hundreds of years. They'll go chasing around, not understanding who they are. But once you actually face somebody or something that is there and is going to be there for a long time, it sometimes makes people nervous. Like, do you know that this could be forever? Or do you know that this is a bigger stepping stone that you've ever taken in your life? Imagine that for some people that really need to catch up. And in certain situations, maybe some people will receive no. So whatever it may be, it is going to be there for a long time. So it's about respecting ourselves, respecting every single life result that led you here, and also respecting and resonating with the family tree and the family name, and not giving it all away at once, and being very careful and kind as can be, with money, with reputation, with personality, with the people that you have around you, with your job, with anything that has been carefully supplied, with all materials, with every single personality that is taking place in your life, and also specifically with you. So thank you very much. I hope this has been an interesting podcast, I suppose. Have a look at my website that has been renewed. It is completely different. If you like, have a look at my book for the year, which is available on the site. Also have a look at my readings. And yeah, for those people that want a little bit more magic, or a little bit more help in interpreting the current times, have a look at my Patreon, because there I will have the whole shebang. So thank you very much. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.